We get into this last month of Big Brother 23, and it's kind of the season of back-to-back HOHs. Tiffany is the first ever back-to-back HOH winning HOH, but we already had back-to-back Highland HOHs. In case you forgot, he had his own HOH, and then he controlled Sarah Beth. But Tiffany kind of got screwed last week as HOH, having Claire with the secret HOH and all that flopping nonsense. Now, let's talk about Tiffany and Kyland. On a personal level, I truly don't like them. I think they've said and done some shitty things this season. They've both been rude and problematic at times. And I mean, I'm also going to shit on Kylan's actual game too. He deserves his game to be completely ridiculed. But however, I can separate the game from personal feelings and say that Tiffany, unlike Kylan, has been able to reel back in her game. And I have called her messy many a times because she has played very messy many a times. But I do think it is a testament to her gameplay that she has been able to, after losing some of her, true pawns like Christian and Derek X, who she could have been minions for her, it was looking kind of bleak for her. It was looking like the messes she had started were catching up to her. But she has done a good job being HOH last week. We'll see this week. But I do feel like last week she set herself up much better for an end game. I feel like there's two things I have been negative and worried about with Tiffany's game. I feel like she definitely has fixed one of those, that being her jury management. The other bigger problem, maybe not quite, but I do feel like her jury management is much improved. I feel like she's played a good enough game and it's an out there game that it can be respected by this jury. I feel like the jury will likely respect it. You never know. But she still has a big issue of getting to the final two. And I know in the episode it showed like Kylan will bring Tiffany to the end. But will Kylan really be at the end to bring anybody to the end? That's not looking great unless he probably wins out down the stretch. And so I feel like Tiffany also is one that might have to win out down the stretch to make the end. I feel like Hannah, in theory, would take Tiffany to the end, but I don't know. Hannah is such a savage that, I mean, it wouldn't surprise me if Hannah thought it was best for her game to cut Tiffany and go to the end with somebody else. I can definitely see Hannah doing that. But before we get to more of this new HOH reign of Tiffany's, let's talk about Kyland. Oof. And this is just the start. I still got to go through Xavier being a crybaby, showing emotions tonight. We'll get into that too. But first, Kyland. Once Kylan won that second HOH and just got power hungry and confusing and just really fucked up his social game. Unlike Tiffany, who has been able to recover for the most part, Kylan just has not at all. And then tonight, to not throw the competition and to try and battle it out with Tiffany to the end, because the original plan was to throw it to Ozza or Big D if anybody could, obviously in this competition. We're going to be able to throw it to Big D. But Ozza made the last three, was started to struggle. Nobody tried to throw it, so Tiffany wasn't going to throw it as long as Kylan was still hanging on, and rightfully so. So Ozza falls, and then it's down to Kylan and Tiffany. Tiffany had been telling him she could stay up here and basically alluding that he should throw it, and he took forever to actually throw it. And he just continues to make these decisions that are selfish and that are just seen as not great for the cookout if he's supposed to be totally cookout. And so I just, if Kylie makes the end, which is doubtful because his target just is huge, I don't know if he's going to get winning votes from anybody. The stupid ass also told Sarah Beth about the big alliance too. Like, I get that he wants to be the person to tell the players, I guess. Maybe he thinks that's like a Josh move on BB19 because Josh beat Paul, even though he played an inferior game. But I just think that backfires. You're going to tell your supposed number one, Sarah Beth, that you basically lied to her this entire fucking game. It's just dumb. Kylan's chances of winning, not great. And now let's talk Xavier. I mean, I have gotten pure joy from watching some of these hypocrites, per usual, on these games. Hypocrites, say one thing early in the season, and then when it happens to them, they do the same thing they were complaining somebody else was doing. Specifically, everybody, when Azah was the first person to have to go through the emotions of having their pawn in trouble, even though Brittany maybe wasn't in trouble, but still, everybody got on Azah's ass for being so emotional. But we've seen it with everybody else throughout the rest of the season. We've seen Kylan spiral several times. We've seen Tiffany go over the top, be emotional, and also volunteer to be a pawn. And then we now see Xavier being a crybaby because, frankly, the girls in the cookout outplayed his ass this past week. And before I forget, big ups to Hannah for, not being the emotional player that so many others have shown themselves to be. We got Big D, who wants to just throw in the towel, and maybe rightfully so, because some of these challenges just are not made for a bigger person like Big D. So he has a right to complain that is truly not fair in a lot of these challenges if we're going to keep it real. So he does have a right to complain because, they're not made for bigger players. But that's kind of always been the case in these reality shows. Like, there's physical competitions, and that's kind of the way it goes. But I understand his plight that he feels it's unfair to him. But kind of throwing in the towel, even Alyssa kind of throwing in the towel. She's pissed that she's a have-not for the third time and that she's just getting skinny. But yeah, now we have Xavier mad because he, for whatever reason, was under the impression that Claire was the next target. But that is because the women have made it kind of seem like Claire was the next target, but not completely. I mean, maybe Xavier just is not in the know as much as he thinks he is. And he's realizing that. And now that he's not in control, and now that the guys can't feel like they're carrying the girls, oh, they're freaking out. And Xavier is spiraling right now because it's probably going to be him up for the third week in a row on the block, this time next to Alyssa. So he's going to have to give up his simping and let the girl that don't want him go. He was saying in hopes that maybe Tiffany would nominate Kylan next to Alyssa because there was a talk about possibly doing that. Xavier was saying he would throw the veto if he was picked and Kai and Alyssa were nominated. But he was lying to Tiffany because he told the guys that he would go for the veto and pull Alyssa down. Which brings me to that if this could go bad for Tiffany after the good work she's put in over the past week. If Alyssa happens to somehow win veto, or if she doesn't nominate Xavier next to Alyssa and nominates somebody else, and Xavier wins veto and pulls down Alyssa, then what does Tiffany do? Can she really attack the cookout straight away? Or does she have to put up Claire and reveal things straight away. It would definitely be a rock and a hard place for Tiffany if Alyssa comes off that block. She would have quite the decision to make, and I feel like either way, that would probably really hurt Tiffany's game. Again, jury-wise, after the jury management she has finally started to pull off. But overall, Tiffany continues to improve her game after some of her past messes. Kylan continues to fuck up his game. Xavier is starting to feel like he's not in control and he's not handling it well. I mean, we got Claire and Alyssa still pretty much non-factors. We got Azza, whose social game continues to be good. If she doesn't go on the block this week, she remains not. Her and Tiffany remain the only two people to not be nominated. You know, Xavier was saying that if he comes down, Azza should go up to Tiffany. Tiffany was leaning towards Kylan or Big D. I mean, is it that bad for Tiffany's game to put up Azza? Because then Tiffany remains the only person not nominated. But that could also grow the target on her back, which I think is already growing. But Azza needs something for her resume to have any shot at winning, I think. I mean, I do think that the jury might hold Azza's game actually very high. They're figuring out that she's in the big alliance, as we saw on the episode with Derek X and Brittany. And so I feel like they would actually respect Azza's game because nobody would see that at all when it comes to Azza and Hannah, and probably Big D too, I guess. But and then Hannah, still think is the dark horse. I feel like Hannah is savage enough to make some moves down the stretch that will win her this game. But I like it, and I'm totally glad that this show actually changed their shitty twist coming up at Triple, and actually now we'll have 2 double evictions back to back. And I think 2 double evictions back to back weeks is way better than that triple eviction. So if the cookout still somehow gets to 6, if Alyssa and Claire are the next 2 gone, then we actually get to see the cookout play the game that they've been planning. And I do think what makes the cookout also so good, like the video I did the other day, compared to some of these other big alliances, it's really not just one person at the top of the alliance trying to steamroll everything. I mean, there is Xavier, who is the front runner, but normally everybody in the big alliance is just playing for like 4th place, 5th place, 3rd place, maybe 2nd place. But I do feel like this season, almost everybody in the cookout is really trying to win this game. And it could go so many different directions still. Maybe less so now that Kylan has just totally burnt up his game. But still, so glad we're going to get to see a final 6. Even if it's not 6 cookout members, it will still be very interesting.